All right, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Black Freedom Forum. I'd like to do some introductions of our team. I'm Rodney Brown, I'm your moderator for today. I'm the president of the Grand Rapids Media Initiative and film incubator and an organizer with the Grand Rapids African American Community Task Force, the Grassroots Up initiative, and a co-facilitator of the Grand Rapids African American Council of Organizations. Some of our other partners on this event, the African Collaborative Network, Grandstand Pictures, the GR-MiFi creative team, and our sponsors we want to acknowledge early on, Grand Rapids Community College's Office of Equity, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the City of Grand Rapids. Thank you all for your patience, and we're going to jump right in as we introduce the panel.
It takes intentionality and everybody coming together, because someone was mentioning the crabs in the bucket. That is the mentality that people have, but we don't have to have that, meaning that when you see that crab inches way up the bucket, another crab pulls it down. Well, we need to be focused on all of us being intentional again. That word is so key. I have a plan in my mind, and I want to collaborate with others, because they used to say one monkey doesn't rule the show or stop the show. So it takes everybody to collaborate and to partner to see good change.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Greer. So I've learned the word trigger. Who've learned this word over the last few years? This idea of triggering, and there's certain things that happens that I've just learned that I can be triggered as well. And so, Ms. Greer, when you make the point of crabs in the bucket, that was a trigger for me. And let me tell you, it triggered me to say this, and I've only shared this in a couple of occasions, and I'm going to press on that idea. But we are worse than crabs in the barrel. When it comes down to how we don't collaborate in this community, you mentioned collaborate, I'm so sad to say that we are cannibalistic. And I'd like some feedback to that idea around how black people within these systems and those who are outside of these systems and those within the black community who work within these systems, what can we do? Commissioner Mayhew, looks like you're ready in order to be more intentional to not cannibalize each other within these systems, and then when community tries to connect with systems.
I think if we say it, we perpetuate it.
Yes, sir.
See, if we say it, we perpetuate it. You know, I don't say that we're worse than crabs in a barrel.
Yes, sir.
I don't say that we have crab barrel mentality, you know, because to say it perpetuates it. But I think we have to take a higher ground and say that we can.
Yes, sir.
Now, the thing that I want my kids, the youth of this community, to be able to walk the streets,
yes, sir,
you know, and not get shot. Point blank, not get shot, and not get beat up by police. That's what I want. And I don't think crab barrel mentality has anything to do with that. You know, but we have a mentality of entitlement to the streets out there that is rampant. That whole mentality of this is my turf and I'm gonna shoot you because you're in my turf. We need somebody to be able to spread the love. To spread the love, because we have genuine love. And it ain't because people ain't teaching you that.
Facts.
It's because you're getting caught up in symbolic interactionism, so watching other people do crazy stuff, and then say, I can do this crazy stuff too. So I think we need to dismantle all of this gang mentality. And I know we ain't gonna dismantle the whole gang mentality, because you walk up in corporate America and they have what they call the wink and the nod. And all this is gang mentality.
Yes, sir.
But then, we need to be able to deal with this stuff, from a standpoint of us.
Yes, sir.
And move our agenda. We have moved our agenda.
Yes, sir.
I'm proud of Rodney Brown.
Yes, sir.
Because in 1996, when the youth came to me as our commissioner and said, we need to stop the Dirty Macs from doing what they're doing, we decided that we put together a civilian appeals board with Rodney Brown and Crewley. So we worked on dealing with these nasty issues in the community. We did that. And so we're continuing to do that. And we're going to continue to do that because seeds have been planted, not just in Rodney, but in other people. And I thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Commissioner.
Rodney, if I could add to that, too, I think I agree with a little bit of what everyone said. I think, to your point, that competitive nature is there, right? I think it's always going to be there. When you're dealing with limited resources, that's just a part of the game. But to your point as well, I think we mentioned this in the back when we were having conversation. We got to stop looking at the overlaying issue as it's being presented to us and really start addressing the root causes. We talk about crabs in a bucket. I was just mentioning this. I heard Jay-Z say it in an interview a couple weeks ago. We keep talking about crabs in a bucket mentality. How did the crabs even get in the bucket? Crabs don't belong in a bucket.
That's right.
So we got to focus on the root causes. We're talking about, you mentioned the gang mentality. It's only called a gang mentality when it's us. But when others perpetuate those same things, it's called a club, or it's called you can call, there you go.
Right.
So it's perception. A lot of it is perception. And I think, to answer your original question, Rodney,
Yes, sir.
I think we're doing it.
Yes, sir.
I think we're doing it right now. I think groups like Michigan Black Expo and NAACP, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but you all know who you are. The movement is alive and well.
Facts.
And it's just a matter of us continuing to lead by example and pulling others in as well as we continue to work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kareem. Thank you, Paul. Please.
Yeah. I like to, part of what the role of the ACN African Collaborative Network is to talk about the African voices within the Black community, because a great deal of diversity continue to increase in the city of Grand Rapids, and so we as an African community want to make sure that we have a lot of similarities with the African American community. There's a lot of things that we can come together on, but we're also honest. There's a lot of things that separate us. So we, as personally, but also as an African community, we like to define terms. So one of the things I love about Americans, taking African proverbs, when it says it takes a village to raise a child. I've heard that spoken a lot. But there's another one that says, if the community does not embrace the child, he or she will burn it down to feel its warmth. Now, the concept of that is always the focus on the child from the American perspective, but that's not for the African perspective. The perspective is on the village. What is the situation of your village? All right? How is it for African culture? It's even around, I was reading this recently about the architecture, how we build our homes in Africa. The way we build them, the way we set things is to keep people from being isolated and not giving you a choice to opt out of community. You do not have that choice. And we incorporate a lot of that. And I'm also an educator. I was a principal of a school in Chad for a number of years, and I've been substitute teaching in a number of schools in Dallas. And one of the things I first got frustrated with a lot of the African-American youth in some of the schools, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and just this kind of nonchalant attitude about education. But one day I was teaching, and you talk about crying. I sat there at the end of the day, and part of it was crying because they just made my my day very difficult. But I was really heartbroken for them for two reasons. One is that within the African American community here, there's this lack of sense of identity. They don't know who they are. Me growing up in the U.S., but I was connected to Africa. I could tell you who my grandparents were, and I could tell those stories. And there's this lack of sense of identity, no fault of their own. It's just stripped of them. And then I realized that sometimes in schools, it's a way to get away from some brokenness in the community to come together, right? And so I just made it a real effort to reach out to the black youth and understand them, because as we're talking about what it means to be black and trying to connect these two communities, it's also incumbent upon us as Africans to understand the African American community and what they've gone through, but at the same time for them to understand where we're coming from. And so I think that education piece, I think people have referred to that, is really important for us to build foundations to move forward.
One of the challenges that we've been putting on the philanthropic community in Grand Rapids is to say, look, they had a system where they would say, yeah, we will help you, we'll give you money, but it's for programmatic ends and objectives. So if you're trying to feed people, we'll buy this food, or if you're trying to service kids, we'll provide these things. These 501c3s and these grassroots organizations, they need capacity building. So you need a CEO who's getting paid a living wage, and a program coordinator, and office staff, and copy machines and faxes and everything, the whole setup. So when our 501c3s and our grassroots organizations come forward and say, hey, we want to do these programs, these are volunteers. I know all of you are volunteering. Everyone up here volunteers. We need to resource these people directly so that they're getting paid a living wage. I heard it described as a thriving wage, so that you're not working a full-time job, having a side hustle, and then on top of that, trying to do this volunteer and community work. So it's very important that we support each other's programs, and that's what an organization like Graco would hope to do, come alongside your organization and say, how can we help? How can we all work together within this environment?
There's an ever-growing population of immigrants coming into Grand Rapids. Yes. And I'm talking, in this specific case, I'm referring to Africans. And within, I call myself an African American. I hold dual passports. I hold a U.S. passport, and I hold a Chadian passport, and I can flow in and out. And one thing that we've realized, talking to Myra and Isaiah, is that we need to address these issues that are happening within we want to be part of the solutions within the black community, but also to recognize that there are differences within our cultures. And if we don't address those cultures, there's going to be continued separation, and you talk about systems, between African Americans and Africans. And then you're going to have these two groups at each other when we should be working together.
Facts.
Right? We talked about engagement versus outreach, right? And I really like it. Engagement is what we need. Outreach, you can go and just hand out pamphlets. That's outreach. Engagement is getting to the nitty-gritty, the ugliness of it, right? There's also a thing between conformity versus uniformity, right? We as Africans don't need to conform to the American way of life or even to the African American way of life. But we need to be united, because there are similar struggles that are very clear, both here and around the world. But there's also distinctions that I think we need to address, not to say that it separates us, but it helps us in our understanding to move forward in developing the programs and processes that help the communities. Because newly arrived immigrants are not thinking as black Americans. And so how do we then get those things working together so that we're united in what we want to achieve?
Yes. Can we give a round of applause, please, to our panel? And as we transition to a pop-up performance, I want to just acknowledge that we are at Grand Rapids Media Initiative and Film Incubator, operationalizing a lot of what we've heard from you all today in terms of our engagement with younger people. And towards that end, this event, these activities would not have been able to happen if it were not for what we call our GR-MiFi creators. And you don't see them all around, but we've got this amazing team of younger people who are behind the scenes coordinating this activity. And bear with me if I don't capture them all, but say hello to these young people, please, and lift them up and give them some acknowledgement about the great work that they are doing.
It's been an honor to be working with Grandstand Pictures and GR-MiFi for roughly the last year. Been kind of off and on supporting some initiatives. 616 Day was actually my first engagement, like officially with them, and it was just such a great time. So yeah, I am actually gonna share a poem for you guys really quickly. We are planning on having a young gentleman named Jalen come up and do a performance right after this. And so I will have a few words to say about Jalen, and his family is very near and dear to my heart. But for now, I just have a very quick poem. It's called Miss, M-I-S-S, Representation. I'm gonna get grounded first, okay? How you doing, miss? I see you, sis, out here glowing and shining, bright like a diamond in the rough. Because this life you're living, it must be tough. Keeping up with the trends, surrounded by fake friends, but your nails done, hair done, everything did. Miss Representation. How hard it must be to survive in this nation, where the women we see don't look like you or me, just bombshells and models all over TV. Between you and me, something has got to change. Black women are always the face, but they won't show us the range. They glorify our pain, make us feel insane, over-sexualize our bodies to keep us locked in these chains. And we can't speak the truth because it's viewed as a threat, too hostile or angry to earn their respect. Mask emotions so we can be perceived as perfect, and every moment we stay silent fills our souls with regret. Miss Representation. Things change so much from generation to generation, but when you peel back those layers, not much has changed at all. History's repeating, and we need a wake-up call. Because we're sleeping through revolution, and they want us to feel small. So united we must stand, or divided we shall fall. So excuse me, miss, I see you, sis. Out here glowing and shining, bright like a diamond. It takes pressure to become so great, so beautiful and flawless despite your mistakes. With the cards stacked against you, you stare fear in the face and breaking glass ceilings of gender and race. Miss Representation, don't you dare give up now. Too many sacrifices have been made for us to simply bow down. Like a rose in concrete, you emerge from the ground. They try to box you in, but you refuse to be bound. And I know heavy is the heart that wears the crown, but carrying burdens of injustice that have been passed down. And together, we are stronger, and I know that now. So keep representing and make the ancestors proud.
Well, once we decided to close our art gallery down, people were coming to us with things that they had collected. They'd see us at different places and say, you know, my dad died, he's gonna, the family has all this stuff that he inherited or he collected it, do you want it? And we would always say, yeah, we'll take it. So after a while, we had like a storage unit full of things that people had donated to us, knowing that we were art collectors. And then he would say, well, I guess if they collect art, they can collect ebony magazines or outfits and things like that. So we decided, well, since we don't have the art gallery now, let's see if we can open a museum. We are the history's, or the city's collection of African American history. The Grand Rapids Public Museum has items related to black history here and locally and regionally, but they don't have a lot. We've given them pieces for exhibits that they've done from our collection. And that's where we focus our collection. Our collection is focused on African American history and not necessarily local history, but it's combined. The local history, African American history, is American history. And that's what we tell people all the time. People will come up to us and say, why do you need an African American museum? Well, why do you need an American museum? It's the same thing, you know. So we overlap, and we want people to understand a couple things about our museum. One is that it is not George's museum. somewhere out there, people say, George's museum. No. It's not George's museum. It's your museum. This museum belongs to the city of Grand Rapids, and that's why we come to you at events like this and ask people to help us with different things. We need a few more board members. We need certainly funds. We need ideas. We need people who want to donate their archives to a place that can be secure and know that it'll be there in 50 years. The word is out that we are moving. Our lease is going to be up at the location where we are now, and we have not secured the building yet, but we are in the process of securing a building, 245 State Street in between Lafayette and Jefferson, and it is a monumental leap for us. Our building right now is about half the size of this building, and our new building is 10 times that size. It's 18,000 square feet, 3-story office building. Used to be St. Mary's offices, medical offices, and it actually has, once we started digging again, found out that I think Dr. Franks and Dr. Mathis had offices in that building back in the 60s. So it's, again, a place where many of our first doctors practiced their profession. But we've got a lot of work to do to get the building. We've got to raise a lot of money. But even when I think about it, this is kind of where this racism kind of thing comes back in, is that we got to raise a lot of money. I'm going to put it around $8 million, okay? In contrast, the public museum's expansion is going to be $70 million. The Ford Museum just did an expansion of their museum. It was, I think, $23 million. The public museum wants to expand their museum. It's going to be $70 million. And so $7 million is a lot of money, but it's not what these other institutions around the community are trying to raise. And as we started our journey to try and get this funding for this museum, we found out that banking practices and business practices here are not very, they're not as friendly to us as they are to other people. So I'll put it that way, knowing that we have to go out there and raise the money. But people are generous. We have started to get donations. We have not launched our capital campaign yet. Probably will be next week. We get our first drawings of what the new building might look like. We'll be getting our exterior shots of what the new inside and outside will look like. Our exhibit designers are starting to put together the whole inside look of what the museum might look like and the things that we want to tell, the stories that we want to tell. It gives me goosebumps sometimes just talking about it because it's our story. It is definitely our story.
So there's this thing that I pressed on with Mrs. Baird, who's, I think they've been in the community 25 years, and she explained to me that there's actually 3 groups of people in Grand Rapids. And I'm going to paraphrase some of this, Ms. Baird, but that there's 3 groups in Grand Rapids. There's the born, raised, indigenous group, like myself and some of you and others. Then there's a group that has been here as black people for 20, 25 years who love Grand Rapids as we do, has embraced Grand Rapids as their community, as their city. And then there's a new group. This is what you explained. The new group of blacks who come in who hasn't been here. We can count the African immigrant community in this framework as well, that when they then come in community, they're trying to figure out who to connect with, and there's a divide even between those who are new to the community that are engaging with a smaller group of people who are in institutions and such, and they never even get connected to those who've been here 20, 25 years. And I think that was a really deep dive, and it helped me, Ms. Baird, to understand that divisive piece and try to be intentional about things that we must do in order to embrace everyone who's black that comes in this community, because folks will end up, and we've heard the word siloed, siloed, and they never get a chance to make connections. So our intentionality with this work, I want to thank you, Ms. Baird, for helping me to understand that and deep diving that. Hey, we're going to bring this other panel up.
No one can speak for me.
Thanks.
One thing that I always try to do is the ABCs. I add value, I want to be valued, and I create opportunity that's not at that table in those spaces. And I make sure that I'm coming from the black perspective that I carry. And one of the things that I do is, just like some of the others do, of course they have these communications behind the scene, but I'm getting on my phone, texting, and I'm saying, hey, this is what's being said. I'm not sure about this. What do you know? What are you hearing? Share this out. We need to add this to our email list of things that go out. This is, we're not being represented well here. We need more people at this table. I don't want to be that one, they can't invite me to the table and expect me to eat their leftovers. I want everything on my plate that they have.
Thanks.
And more.
That's right.
Right? And so another thing that I do is I make sure that I'm pushing out this information to all of my allies, you, others, the groups that I set up, my LLC, my husband and I, Legacy and Love. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is helping close this wealth gap.
Thanks.
Create opportunity, make sure our people are informed. If you don't know, now you know. If I'm at the table, you're going to know what's happening, because I'm coming back and sending it out to everybody that I know, right? Because I feel like this is how we inform. If we're not informed, if we don't know, then that's a problem. There are things that are happening, and we're being left behind.
Right.
It's nothing new. It's been very well crafted, but we need to dismantle. Those are extractive systems, and I come to tear them down. Right. I'm in my heels, my gym shoes, whatever it is, I'm running with it.
That's right, no doubt.
And I'm tearing it down.
That's right. Thank you, Saidi. No, absolutely. Thank you, Saidi. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's utterly brilliant. I think the idea of being the only persons in spaces is sort of a double-edged sword, in a sense that, first off, for you to be in that space, you would have excelled, in a sense, more often than not, to be invited to those places in the first place. I can speak professionally. I came into this country as a professional. I know my stories are typical, but I was employed to come and work directly. And I was employed, and where I was introduced, there were no black faces, none whatsoever. But all of a sudden, I became the voice of Black America,
right.
Having lived in America for a couple of months. Having not made any African-American friends or community, but everybody would turn to me for a black perspective. And so the first part of that sword is, I am me, just like she said. I come with my prejudices, my lived experiences, and I cannot speak for everybody in America who is black. I cannot even speak for everybody who is black in Africa. Just for context, I always tell them, Africa is America times 4. I come from one of the smallest countries in Africa, which is Cameroon, but it has a landmass of California with 285 different languages in 26 million people.
My experience has been quite different. Speaking as often the only black person in the policy room, I have to I speak for myself, but I often speak for the community. But as W.E.B. Du Bois said, being black is you live in two worlds at all times, and I would add on to it, you probably live in 5 because I have to code switch every day. As Kenny said, I got to talk in boardroom speak, talking on the hood level speak. But then again, why is it hood? Why is it everything that we gotta do for our community has to be hood? When I don't like being the only black person in the room, so I make a point bringing folks into that room with me as much as I can, because I don't have the full black experience. I don't own it. I have my own experiences as a mod, And I try to bring other folks who also have experiences into those rooms because I can't speak. I don't want that sole responsibility to be on me. To what you're talking about, growing up in Grand Rapids, I had to get out, and I think what often happens is a lot of young black people do leave because they feel like they can't be themselves here. If I don't look a certain way, I don't dress a certain way, I'm not even black anymore. But I'm not a light-skinned person by any means. And often people think I'm not from here. I'm from Africa or adopted because I talk a certain way. It's like I never got that. I don't really mess with that. So we got to take some accountability, in my opinion, on ourselves by not diverting folks away from GR, away from our own people, because microaggressions cut both ways.
Yes, sir.
So what I try to do is try to treat everybody as their own person, try to bring people into the rooms that I've been blessed to be a part of, try to educate myself on their lived experiences because I don't know everything. I try to be humble in policy because that's how we create the best policy.
And so let me just ask if you can all close with one last statement around this prompt. What does black freedom in Grand Rapids mean to you as it relates to community and economic development?
We have to be able to build an inclusive economy in the sense of keeping our resources invested in our own neighborhoods and amongst ourselves. That's the only pathway to freedom. You look at every other group of people and they're able to keep their own dollars, where black people have some of the highest amounts of spendable dollars in the country, and we give them to everybody else. There's no path to freedom if we keep giving all of our money to everybody else. But the system was designed that way. So for me, engagement and outreach lead to teaching people how to keep dollars in our own communities and in our own pockets. So we're sharing business and resources with each other. I'm giving my brother the contracting job because he's gonna turn around and give me the live event job. And then we're gonna go to our power washing cousin who's gonna power wash the stage for us. And then we're gonna go to the car wash who's owned by our granddaddy who passed it down to our second or third cousin on the left side. And they're gonna go ahead and wash everybody's cars for the car show that's coming through. That's how you lead yourself to freedom and liberation.
That's right. Thank you, Ken. 100%.
My idea of black freedom is sharing our capital. We all have immense, in terms of finance, we have immense social capital. We don't share that enough. And to me, black freedom is being held accountable. And as Kenny said, we often know what to do, but we don't do it. Right. And we expect the same 25 people in Grand Rapids to do the same stuff, speak for everybody else, right. And you don't want to do it. What happened to Patrick? Well, what are you going to do? But what are y'all going to do? It's not all on the mind. It's not all on the NAACP, the urban leagues out there. We all got the ability to walk and do our own stuff. We all got the ability to go out and learn. We all make excuses often, times about why stuff don't change, why we don't execute. If you want to be free, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. And you can't rely on the Rodneys to come and save you. It's not his job. Yeah. It's not. It's your job to save you. So freedom is a mindset. So I'll leave you all with that thought.
Thank you, brother.
I feel like for me, it's continuing to connect with my ancestors, which I do on a daily basis, and allow them to continue to guide me. They're always giving me something. I can't rest sometimes at night because they're showing me I'm getting up writing stuff down, and then I'm sharing it out. But one of the things that I would encourage all of us to do is to reach back and grab somebody else and pull them along with you, right? And show up and speak up. There are so many things happening out here for us, especially this week, y'all. Come on. We have to share this information, have people show up to the meetings. We can go in groups. There are power in numbers. And just because somebody don't want to get up and say something, just like we was doing, snap it up. Encourage that next person. That's right. We can do this. You know how much power we have, they fear us. We are so powerful when we come together. Why do you think they're doing what they're doing? They are afraid of us because we are relentless. So if we come together and just do everything that everybody here has said and others today, and everything you're hearing in the community about what needs to happen for us to be about it, if we stood together and made that happen, we wouldn't have these issues.
Thank you, sis.
As you see about freedom and economics, one thing that helps me is that, in life, everything that you build and you cared for and that you want to keep will one day come to dust. And so because I have that perspective, what is the thing that could survive for me is my legacy. So those actions you take and people who know you are, that's the legacy you're passing on to somebody else to inspire, right? Because you may not be able to give everybody material goods or all of that stuff, but we're inspired by somebody somewhere who passed on a legacy that can't be measured in dollars or in material things. That's and we push that forward. Because that's an equal plane for someone who's black, who may be rich, and someone who's poor. Right? Someone who's poor may have that as a richer thing to keep a movement moving forward on that. And like I wear my jalabias. Like a year ago, like, I don't think I wore a pair of jeans maybe this year already, except when it got cold. But it's for my identity as an African, this is what I would wear traditionally at home. Now, why do I need to change that? Because I'm in the States. There's a president of Nigeria, Obasanjo. He's still alive, but anytime, any meeting he goes to, when you have Westerners and all, or even African presidents that be wearing suits, he wears his jalabia. That's what he wears. And so you'll see this picture of all these men, and then there's one guy who's wearing his traditional because that's his identity, and you need to keep that. And on the economic side of it is you shouldn't always want to hook up. If it costs $500 and your brother's charge, is a reason they're charging that. You pay it. Find a way to pay that money. So in me, I'm like, there's a reason why they to keep the business going. They may not want to charge more, but that's what they need, and that's what I need to be willing to pay, because that happens in other communities, right? So now for me, if I'm with my African friends or black friends, and I know they're doing good business, and that's the price, I'm going to find a way to pay it.
Yes. Thank you, brother.
Might as well just drop the mic.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but I'm going to end with a couple of quotes from some people. I'm going to start with, again, one of my best philosophers, Bob Marley. He says we should emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. There is a lot of it that our community still has, and that is the feeling of not being good enough, of not being potent enough to do what we can do. And the way we do that is just look through your rear view, as Tupac would say. People have done it. We are here because of a ton of our ancestors in the past that have done stuff for us to be here. So we can be liberated mentally. The second quote I have is from Steve Biko. He was one of the freedom fighters in South Africa. And he used to say that the most potent tool in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. If you give them your mind, you are forever under them. So when I think black freedom, I always think here. If we take here back, we can take everything back. And we can do that by looking to the past, but also by looking across. Our brothers in the Caribbean, our brothers in Africa, our brothers here, we have all conquered different aspects of what we can do together. If we work together, we can pollinate. And by pollinating, we can surpass. And lastly, and almost at the end of the day, follow the money. Empowerment in the world, across all the places I have lived, all the continents, 3, 4 continents now, money talks and bullshit works. Excuse my French. Okay? We need to empower ourselves economically to be able to make it to the tables, but also to make a difference. And to do that, we need to get rid of gatekeepers. We need to throw amongst us people who are gatekeepers. You know what I'm talking about. People who get there and need you to pay a tax for you to go through. We need to get rid of those people who are not representing us but themselves. So get rid of gatekeepers, talk to each other across, beyond, and above, and liberate our mind. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get to black freedom.
That's the mic drop, right? Thank you, brother. Dr. Umeni.
We've been doing a lot of civic engagement in the community, making sure that our voices are heard. We are bridging the gap between the city, the county, and the community, especially in the wake of killing of Patrick. And we have been in the front lines talking about how important it is to have the language and culture barriers looked into so that we don't have that as a barrier for a new American. Other ways we are engaged is also making sure we really articulate the needs and talk about it to the right people so that policies can be changed and they can be able to put policies that focus on everybody. For example, as I said again, one of the big things is system barriers that impact all of us. And any marginalized population can tell the story of feeling desperate and needing that support. So we do mental health as well. We just finished a partnership we had with GR-MiFi yesterday. We did men mental health, which was focused on black men. And we did it, and Ned was there. It was a beautiful listening session. We are doing community listening sessions and partnering with anyone who wants to work with us in that population, in that area. So our mental health is focused, again, back to the same, the stigma, the cultural barriers, the issues that really make us not seek mental health. So that's one of the big areas we have been focused on, and we are going to continue to have that throughout the year. But I believe also, like Rodney is talking about, being able to tell our stories through art. I think if we don't tell our stories, no, somebody else will tell them, and they won't tell them right. So it is our responsibility, and that's why for me, one of the initiatives we do is bringing talent to the community where they can see it and they can be able to understand those people through their talent, through their work, through their culture, through their who they are.
You can't be what you can't see. And so when you talk about iconography and all of the images and the things that we see about black people in media, but here in Grand Rapids, when we don't see ourselves, how limiting it is in order to be aspirational in terms of what we want to see for ourselves and for our community. Ari Wade, again, is the founder of the Black Book Exchange, and this idea of iconography doesn't just speak to pictures, it speaks to buildings, it speaks to anything that we see. I believe that the Black Book Exchange is one of the most important statements and efforts that we've seen in our community in recent years, and I think that it serves as a bit of positive iconography, the name and the books themselves, but the Black Book Exchange. Can you tell us what motivated you to create the Black Book Exchange?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Seriously.
Bring your mic closer.
So iconography, I've never heard that in my life. I had to write that down. I had to Google it. That's a cool word and meaning. So thank you for introducing me to that. So the Black Book Exchange Box was birthed in 2019. I was given a book house that you put in the ground, and then people come share books, take books. And I'm going to tell y'all the real story because it's, I don't, like a lot of people speak about like God openly and talk about how he was all in something because, I'm not the holy or type of person. But my aunt is. And that day my aunt died, me and my brother, our family was just traumatized, we're trying to do something. So we put the book house into the ground, and I was trying to act like nothing happened because we didn't want a lot of people to know yet. So I just posted and out of nowhere, I'm like, this book house is gonna only have Black books in it. And so the reason why I said that was because we have a book house, a little free library around the corner from us, and my kids was always taking our books around there, but they were bringing back nothing. And they're like, well, we didn't see it. I'm like, well, would you quit taking my books? Black books are expensive. And so I'm like, so when that happened, I was like, you know, you're going to be able to find black books in this box. And so, you know, people on Facebook were excited about it. And I just instantly went to the Neighborhood Match website and filled out an application twice because it got deleted the first time. And I'm like, nah, forget it. No, I'll just do it over. Anyhow, they gave me some money. I just collaborated with people I knew. I went to the Center for Community Transformation because I knew they build things, and they agreed to build the houses with the students. Ilya painted a electric box on the end of my street in Garfield Park. Link has the new apartments, and she painted that electric box, and I'm like, dang, that's dope. And then I pulled over at the stop sign like, hey, Ilya, I got an idea. Can you paint my book houses? Because I was just going to paint them black, you know. And so it just kind of came, and I speak about God and my aunt because she's always been she prayed for our family. Like, if something happened, we going to call my aunt. Like, we called her Toofy. You know her maybe as Ruth Jones. And she was like, you know, we always called her for prayer. Like, she was the only one in our family that could talk to God. We called her and we depended on her for that. And I remember just knowing, like, Toofy, you know, just do what you do, you know. And that's what I just remember saying that to her, you know. And ever since that day, like, it just has been a blessed organization. We have never, my biggest fear when we started was we won't have enough books. So that was the biggest fear. Like, I'm going to put these in the ground, but what if we run out of books? And to this day, I have boxes and boxes of books, and I've never once ran out of books. So the reason why it was important to have my book box be about black books is because coming from an early childhood background and being a black person, I've grown up not seeing books that look like me. We used to have Black Expressions. Black Expressions used to be a book club, like you could order black books. That was the only way that I remember getting books that represented my culture and my story. I remember reading books like Fly Girl and The Coldest Winter Ever, and I've never in my life read a book so intensely until I started reading books that represented me, and I can see the people in the book look like me, and I can connect with some of their experiences. And so I wanted that for my children. And when I posted it on Facebook, I see that my community needed that as well. And then it became not about literacy. You know, literacy is important, right? Knowing how to read and to connect with what you're reading, knowing how to understand, all of that is great. But my reason for it was representation. We need to see ourselves. Our children need to see themselves in books. Our teenagers, adults, I need to see myself. I need to read books that represents my culture and my life. And so it was a social justice issue. It wasn't a literacy. I wasn't attacking literacy, you know. So that's where We Are Lit came in. I reached out to Kendra McNeil because she is the reader. She's the well-read black girl. And I'm like, hey, sis, you love to read. I like reading a lot, obviously. But that was her thing. So with her love for literacy and with I'm just like, look, we need black books. We need everybody to be able to read our story, not just black people, but people need to understand the importance of having black stories in the libraries, in the schools, read out loud to children, in these book houses, in these neighborhoods. And it was all about that. It was my way of activating representation. and providing access to that.
Very much so. No, that's perfect, Ari. And it's perfect, and it does represent. When we see the Black Books box exchanges through our neighborhoods, that is iconography. And up until that, and then we'll talk about some of the murals and the mural movement as well, we rarely can see ourselves in a positive way in Grand Rapids. And that's critically important to us, that, again, we can see ourselves. So relative to literature, it's important that we can see ourselves in the literature. And it's a misnomer out there to think that Black people don't read, and that, you know, that old adage where you say you want to keep a secret, put it in a book. No, Black people read, and Black people have always read. And so the courage that you had, Ari, of knowing that for yourselves, but knowing how important that is to get books where our young people can see themselves, again, I want to applaud that again. So big round of applause again to Ari for getting that going. Some other iconography in the community was created by this artist extraordinaire, legend himself, Mr. Esan Summersell. And so, Esan, if you can tell us about the importance of some of the murals that you've done, identify some of those murals, and why was it important that you put those murals up?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with the most recent. I was one of the premier artists for the debut of the 49507 project, helmed by the Diatribe, and the goal was to put up these gorgeous murals done by Black artists on Black buildings, and the goal was very successful. I will say. The idea was great. I knew it from the beginning, when it was just a thought, and when, you know, getting to watch something develop and actually come to fruition, it was big for me, because I'm a doubtful person when it comes to certain things. Like, I like to see people actually follow through, and, you know, I won't trust it until I see the gears moving. So for me, it was like hearing it, and I was just like, all right, we'll see, you know, what does that look like, you know, and because I challenge myself like that. So being blessed with that opportunity to paint on, you know, well, I was actually matched with Jamil Robinson of, you know, the Grab, and it was a blessing for me, because I would see this guy, you know, doing big things throughout the community, and I love it. I love seeing, like, you know, powerful Black people moving throughout our community, and just being able to match with somebody like that I looked up to was big for me. And come to find out, like, towards the end of the project, it was just like he said, like, hey, I want to work with him or nobody else, you know. So he wanted me too. So having that, you know, just connection was beautiful for me. And you know, so the Grab and what it entails to help with you know, Black businesses and getting people educated was very big for me. Me growing up in the 49507, you know, on Evergreen Street, and I ended up buying my mother's house and whatnot too. So I'm still there. I'm still in the neighborhood. I know, you know, I'm turning 35 this year. I've been there a long time. You know what I'm saying? So I know what the people need, and I didn't want to give them something that they couldn't see that mural and walk away with, you know, nothing. I didn't want to give them something to where, you know, it gave them too much information to where they didn't have to think either. And that's been part of my intentional process. Now it's like, I want to give people the opportunity to create, develop, or, you know, power that curiosity again, or just want people to ask questions, or, you know, and seek that knowledge and whatnot. And so the piece I created on Jamil's building on the Grab is titled Generational Wealth, with the H after the W, to represent that wealth and health go hand in hand. And as we know, in the Black community, mental health is not something that we like promote or we encourage and whatnot. And that's something that's one of the generational curses that I want to break, and I want to push people to figure themselves out. I have a phrase that I use. It's called heal people, and so if we imagine if everyone in our community becomes one or understands themselves, and they become very powerful individuals, and you multiply that by thousands, and you got Tulsa all over again. You got people that are just doing numbers, doing miraculous things, and I believe that in our people. So I want to tackle that mental health aspect, because I want to give people the access to hope, and I want to give us the access to hope. I want to give us the access to creative thinking, using our left and right brain simultaneously. Like, I want to give us access to be free in our mind, so we can break the shackles physically. And this piece was just about that, and also about generational wealth, which is something that isn't, we don't learn that until a later age, but I want people to experience that, to perpetuate that motto of creating something for generations to come to be able to indulge in. So that was something that Jamil and I both spoke on heavily, was about encouraging people to own, and to have things that we can pass down. Because every other, community, every other race, they're doing it. They're passing down businesses. All throughout the hood, you see hair shops owned by, the Asian community. You see gas stations owned by the Indian community, and we're pouring our dollars into it. And the black dollar is strong. It's very strong, and we have to develop in ways that we're pouring back into our own communities. And that's, like my family passing down, our home that I grew up in to me, and I'm gonna pass it down a few homes on to my kids. Like, I wanna teach our community that we're capable of doing just those same things. So the piece, I know that's a roundabout explanation, but the piece represents that in totality. You see these beautiful black faces, young and old, different complexions in the black community, and they're sitting up top. These smiling faces are sitting up top of gold and jewels and generational goods passed down from generation to generation. And you got these Haitian coins to represent the wealth in Haiti and whatnot floating around these faces. And the idea is that, most murals we see is fallen black people. It's memorials, as I put them. And I really don't like painting things like that. I once did something recently of Breonna Taylor on the corner of Eastern and Oakdale. So I know you guys probably seen that on the Gentleman's Club, owned by Jeff and whatnot. I did that painting, and that got destroyed. But I only did it because I wanted to represent Breonna Taylor, who is a Grand Rapids native, and I didn't know that, and it hit me so strongly once I found that I wanted to represent my people more. And so that kind of segued into this piece where, like I said, you have all these different faces in the black community, and they're my family. There's me at the end. There's my son, my youngest son, my daughter. My mentor from John McDonald from Kendall College, my wife and my stepson and my oldest sibling, my oldest sister, in this community. They're alive. You can go up to them, you can shake their hand, give them a hug, and that's the idea. Is like, you don't have to have kids walking by a piece of Nipsey Hussle and he's gone, and you got to think about, well, how did Nipsey Hussle get here? Why are they putting his mural up? Oh, he got shot, so I have to get shot in order to be on this wall. So it's like, I don't want to give people that idea. I want them to walk by and be like, oh yeah, that's that's so-and-so. Oh man, I go to school with him. Oh, that's cool. I can see myself in this person. Oh, I work with her. That's cool. Oh, I studied under him. Wow.
I'll start by saying iconography is one of my new favorite words. Just the thought of it, I didn't know that's what it was, but when you think about it, you realize how much images have been impressed upon you through various forms of media, and how you take those messages and those images, et cetera. I was thinking, sitting here listening, I was thinking about a function I was with, and I won't be long, I'll get to the final answer here in a second, Rod. But I was at a fundraiser downtown of the 38th president of the country, Gerald R. Ford, not for him, but it was for his association foundation, presidential foundation, or something like that. And the hosting was his photographer. So he hosted this fundraising, and he went through all these photos that he did. And to learn that every president has, they have a photographer that's with them for the whole time. So there's a reason why they have these presidents have photographers, because they want to catch just that right moment, to some staged, some not staged, in order to promote this persona or this image or this whatever of this president of our country. So iconography is huge. And what I'm going to say is I see the collaboration of the creatives down here that I'm fortunate to be with. I don't count myself as a creative in that sense. I count myself as a creative in more of an entrepreneurial sense. In the sense that not everybody, folks think that entrepreneurialism is reserved for those that are going to start business and do business, but entrepreneurialism is a spirit that has a spirit of creativity, a spirit of creating something that didn't exist, a spirit of moving, and it can be applied across various functions or what have you. What we do at the league, we work more, again, we're on the street level, but we work on the policy level as well. So how I see it, Rod, is, and I'm looking at Governor Slugwell there, and I'm thinking of our time out there on 720 Plainfield, and when we would go to gym class, there was a name and a picture that was outside on the gym and outside the gym there that I wasn't familiar with, but it was a black man. It was Paul I. Phillips. So we got to see that every day. Not only that, we played basketball. I know Rod and the rest of us, we played basketball over at Paul I. Phillips Gym. So being able to understand, seeing those names on those buildings, and then actually, this is a little bit of a confession. During the pandemic, went down to Atlanta. Been there several times, but never in just a visiting capacity or a recreational vacation capacity, and got a chance to walk down the street. All that tour market, it was closed, but be able to see all that was going around Dr. King. But my best friend, Rick Robinson, he took me around. He said, hey, man, we got to go around. He took me around Atlanta and be able to see bridges, schools, all these other things named after black people. And what that could do is how we look at Atlanta. I'd like to see us do the same thing here in Grand Rapids, be able to name these things and have pictures, murals I appreciate what my brother to my left said, legend. I'm going to just call them legend. Legend, he said about the living legends. Having them up there on the thing, and Rod and the rest of us shiny, and Victor, as I look around, I see Ari over here, and I see this young man, legend, here, and I see Gene back there, and I'm like, wow, we have become that generation that we looked up to. Some of the names of all the guys that we looked up to in the communities, and the responsibility we have to say, and the answer is yes. I don't know what that looks like for the Urban League to get involved, yes, sir, but I do know it to be part of what we do going forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can work together to make sure that all forms of media and iconography are being brought so that we can continue to tell this narrative of what's going on here in Grand Rapids and be able to project the vision that we want to see.
So I feel that our space as a glimpse of Africa, that's exactly where we are. It's being able to represent and tell different stories that bring us all together, because as together we are able to tell not just single stories, but more stories. So I feel for me it's important that we write and we be the platforms that amplify artists, creatives, and giving that honor to people that are doing great things, not just when they are being remembered after they've left. So I believe that A Glimpse of Africa, especially our festival, it's a space that you can come and write, tell stories, hear what we are doing, And of course, I'm happy to be a part of that journey that creates, if it's a book, if it's a film. I can't wait to watch the film that you're writing within the city. And I just want to share a little bit about what it looks like. So there is people who are food producers that are really not being seen very well in our community, and I hope that that kind of art, culinary art, is a beautiful art. And I think it should be able to be articulated and told, because that is one of the biggest things that we can share as a Black community, it's food. And the other thing that we amplify a lot is dance, and also creatives that do stuff like that is so iconic to the African people, is braiding and things that tell our journey, even how we got here.
When we talked about it at another panel, the relentlessness of the system, how regardless of what Black people have done, we talk about that a lot in this book. And in this book, A City Within a City, the Black Freedom Struggle, it lays out multiple strategies and ideologies and philosophies that Black people have had in history. So Paul I. Phillips, Carl Smith, and so many others that they speak to here in the system. We've used the word of shape-shifting, that the system will shape-shift in order to accommodate whatever strategy that you've used in order to maintain and keep control anyway. And so that's what that kind of puts me in, is that Black people with our greatness, that, okay, you figured out that the tone and the tempo of these drums, we're going to do something else. We're going to get, something else to get our messages out. That's part of the whole idea of iconography. Era, can you come down, please? So Era Ganali is one of our creatives with the GR-MiFi organization. Era is from Egypt and is a college graduate and such. And we want to premiere her film. And we're going to get a final comment, though, after we see the film from you all and what you see on film and how that iconography in and of itself may inspire you. So again, let's give Era, even before we see the film, a big round of applause.
You know when you see a spider in your room walking around on the ceiling or like in the corner of the bathroom, and you just grab your flip-flops to quick get it, and you end up hitting it, knocking it down dead. I mean, I get it. You think like it's scary, it's gonna hurt you, but it's just, you think about it, it's just living in peace. Didn't do any harm to you in any type of way. It's actually the opposite. You're the one annoying him. He's trying to run from you when you're literally chasing him for no reason.
So you just had it with that spider. You want to get rid of it. It's causing discomfort in your so-called home.
There is no reason why you would try to make peace with it when you can just kill it, right?
He is not that important to anyone. You don't care if he has a family or kids that would gather their friends and march to you saying,
like, hey, like you just killed Dad. We demand justice. It's just a spider, and really nothing was going to happen to you. I mean, you don't go to prison for killing a spider. It's like, I don't know, you killed a human being, right? Am I right, though? Because that was not a spider.
That's some tough stuff there. I've said publicly, I've said privately, and I will continue to say history in Grand Rapids will be marked pre-April 4th, 2022 and post-April 4th, 2022. That's the day when Patrick Loyola lost his life. We cannot have any social justice without reserving the sanctity of human life and understanding that that applies to all humans. And also, I love this as a form of participation. When you talk about social justice, we all need to participate, and we all have different ways of participating. And all of us doing our ways of participating collectively is what's going to move the needle on things. From protesting to iconography. Again, I got it now. This is one of my new favorite words. And from changing policy to running for elected office, as Victor Williams was in the audience, and applaud him for doing that. That's a way of taking up participation for fights like this. We have to do it across the gamut, and thank you.
This is David Benoit. Big shout out to Dave as production coordinator to make all of this work happen. And again, over the course of the weekend, David is going to, in the team, be capturing content at a lot of, if not all, but a lot of the Juneteenth events. And this is going to be a vignette that we're creating. I would give Dave the mic, actually, because he's probably got a minute of something that he may want to say. You want to say something, brother?
Yeah, sure. Why not? All right. This is kind of weird for me. But yeah, as Rodney said, I'm Dave Benoit. I am a GR-MiFi creator. I am a born and raised Grand Rapids artist. And for a very long time, I never really cared about my city, or I always wanted to leave, like a lot of us, because I never felt like I had a place to actually grow. But over the years of trying to become an artist myself and doing a little bit of everything and anything, I started to see something special. And I like to thank Victor Williams and Rodney Brown for doing the work that they do at Grandstand, because it really opened my eyes to a lot of the social issues we have here in our city. I learned so much in a short time working on their documentary, and it really has inspired me to, not only stay in Grand Rapids, but I still plan on seeing the world and moving and working in different places, but really take roots here and be a pillar in our community and help young people find ways to express themselves. And that's why I created my company, Mad Ethnic. Mad Ethnic all started literally with me just trying to help my friend be creative. And just because of something that I made, the city or whoever owned it, I guess the building at the time, decided to not only decided to cover my art, which I was okay with, but also cover my friend's art, which was pretty much harmless and I would say inspiring. So all of that kind of prompted me into working with Grandstand and taking more serious roles in GR-MiFi and taking more responsibility with creating the Black Freedom Forum and the live stream and all those other things. So I just think it's important that all of us, every single one of us, not just a few, not all these small different communities just doing random things on Juneteenth. Just, some people are just making some money for the day. Some people are actually celebrating history, but we really all have to come together as a people. There's so much money and things happening in the city, and people are just waiting. And I have a million ideas, and I'm just trying to make a couple of them come true. So I appreciate you guys for coming out here tonight, and I don't know if you're rapping or I'm rapping. So yeah, thank you. Thank you guys.